again while we're at home in quarantine, and I have on sweatpants, so don't let this blazer.
Oh, I'm wearing yoga pants under
and
here.
then I have on, but you can't see my shirt. I have my.
You have your yeah. You know, that's so funny because I was gonna wear mine, and then we would have been twinsies.
Oh, you should have worn it.
But I don't know why I was like, after watching I'm Your Woman, I was like, I want to go with more of like a 70s kind of like.
I love it. I have nothing in my closet that matches that, so I couldn't even try.
I'm so excited to have you on. It's always nice. I always feel like it's such a win for me when I can pursue someone on Instagram and be like, she's dope, I want to talk to her, and then I make it happen. It just brings me so much like personal joy, and I think speaks to that hustle that you have to have as a producer. Yeah, so thank you for saying yes.
I mean, I love that. I love the hustle in others because I see myself in that. That's kind of how I got my first job in the industry, really, is reaching out through social media.
Interesting. So, well, so I want to get to that, but so take me to the beginning. You're from LA. Mm-hmm. You grew up around here. Were you aware growing up here of the industry and that was something that you wanted to get into?
No, not at all. I mean, I was aware of course, TV and film. I was aware of acting, and I think it's so cool. I love that you like the questions that you sent over are so like you did a deep dive. I was like, how did she find this stuff? But yeah, I think I was always like, oh, I want to be an actress. I want to be able to play different roles and be different people. That sounds fun. And then as I got older, what I realized was I was running away from myself a little bit. And so I was looking forward to playing roles that weren't me, right? And so I had no idea what a producer was, a director. I'm assuming that I realized that there was writing that the actors had to read in lines, but never really crossed my mind. Yeah. And let alone executives at a production company or a network. Like I had no idea. And, you know, being raised in Altadena, I went to school in Burbank and I was on the medical track, as you know. I wanted to be a doctor since I could remember. And at Providence in Burbank, they have a medical and a media track because they're right across the street from Disney Studios and then right adjacent to Providence St. Joseph Hospital. And so I did the medical track and a few of my friends did the media track. And I remember being like, so you're doing media, like you're gonna go like play at Disney. Like
you had that judgment, right?
I'm gonna be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
I'm taking life seriously. Yeah.
And like while you guys are over there like hanging out with celebrities, I'm gonna be saving lives.
Doing real important work. Yeah.
Doing really important work. So it's really full circle. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And so then you decide to go get a degree in biology at Spelman. You leave LA. Tell me about this. I'm sure your mom was really proud of you. She's like, oh, I raised this daughter. She's going to go be a doctor. I'm chilling. I'm set. And then you get there. And at some point in your journey, you realize that that's not for you. Talk about having that realization and then identifying like what was next, especially if you had not really had a lot of experience in the business. It's fascinating to me that you were like, no, not biology, but I'm going to go back into the film industry versus anything else that you could have done, you know?
Yeah. I mean, kudos to my mom because she is gone. I've taken her through many heart attacks. And, but she always told me that I could be and do anything I wanted to. So I think that was a really freeing thing to kind of be raised with, to know that like, I could do anything. Now I just need to figure out what I want to do. And I mean, she definitely steered me into like medicine and biology. And I was in all of the medical clubs and I played chess and I was like that kind of person. But being at Spelman opened my eyes up to passion and wanting to do something that I loved. And not only something that I was good at, right? So I just so happened to be really good at math and science. So happened to be good at like learning terminology and memorizing it, but it wasn't my passion. And so I looked around and I started to see people who are really excited about the next steps in their life. Like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till I graduate because I'm going to go and pursue X, Y, and Z. And I was like, I'm going to take the MCAT and then I'm going to be, emergency room surgeon. It's going to be great. I'm going to, save lives. and I just knew that like, I didn't feel that burning desire.
Yeah.
Also, when you're in the emergency room and you're shadowing physicians, a lot of people were dying. So I didn't realize that was something that I was going to have to deal with on a daily basis, multiple times a day. So there's not enough training in the world that can prepare you to tell someone that their loved ones are no longer here. And that just wasn't exciting to me anymore, like at all. In the beginning, I just was like, I never thought about it until I had to do it.
Yeah. It's like you had an idea, it sounds like, of what you thought it was going to be like. And then you got there and you're like, oh, there's all this other stuff that they don't really tell you about, you know, in the books when you're choosing a path.
Of course I knew it wasn't Grey's Anatomy, right? Like I was like, all right, I know it's not like this. And I had experience multiple times being in the hospital, but in college, I had the experience of having to tell people that their loved ones were gone. And I was like, nope, I can't do this every day. So I came home after, you know, I did a domestic exchange at Wellesley, an international study at the University of Sussex. And I've always been that person to just like go and try and do new things and be open to failing. I think that's really important in our industry and kind of the world, but specifically we're talking about producing. There's projects like the Queen's Gambit that's been around for 30 years and hit every roadblock. And so I think you have to be resilient. So I came home and was like, I want to do something fun. I just want to have fun for a minute. Fun doesn't always equate to money.
Amen. Yeah.
You're just like, oh, that's kind of fun, but I'm not.
When you thought fun, what did that mean? That meant like, I want to get in the film industry?
I think it meant I wanted to try out things that I was scared to try before. Which was acting. So I did a little bit of acting. I also did was it the Miss America pageant? I did one of those pageants. Because one, I'm afraid to walk on stage and I'm afraid for people to like judge me and to see, I'm afraid of what they'll see, right? I think it's a very vulnerable place to be.
To be on a stage.
To be on a stage in front of people that you don't know. You can't really see them.
Yeah.
They can see all of you. And then especially in those kind of pageants where you're in like a swimsuit. And I was like, So I faced my fear and I did that. After a while, I realized that I didn't like the rejection of acting.
Yeah. I think as someone who also kind of started as an actor, I came out here to pursue the industry as an actor before finding producing as like a way to create my own opportunities. What I learned is that I love acting. I just don't want to have the actor lifestyle. And those are two very different things. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that. And I would be on set as an actor being like, what's everybody else doing? How does this all come together? You know, and wanting to talk to all the department heads and they're like, stay in your trailer. So like, that's when I was like, I was like, maybe there's more beyond this thing that is very important and awesome and fun that it just expanded my world. So I really identify, with what you're sharing.
Are you from LA as well?
No, I'm actually from Brazil. So people listening are like, oh, you tell the story every time. So, but short, like, you know, TLDR version is I was born in Brazil. My parents moved here when I was 9 to Virginia. And then my dad got a job in Florida, which is where I went to like middle, high school. And then I did college for 2 years. I went to University of Central Florida with the intention of studying theater and, you know, getting a BFA. And then after 2 years of getting antsy, I came out here to pursue acting. So, but now I've been in LA for 14 years. So I feel like
it's home.
It's home. You know, I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else. And I feel like LA is just, it gets me and I get it, you know?
Yeah.
It's interesting. But okay, so then you see the acting isn't for you, but you want to stay in this grind and you say you get on social media and that's how you kind of hustle your way into your first opportunity. Tell us about that.
So funny. I feel like the people that I'm going to mention are going to be watching like, yep, she did that.
Hey.
So I was acting and was like, okay, I don't want to do this, but because we're actors, we're in rooms with casting directors. I'm like, okay, so maybe I want to be a casting director. Like, I think I could be on the other side of the table. So I just started reaching out, like cold emailing emails that I had. And of course, there were none that I really like. 2 people I had their emails. And then I was like, oh, Tracy Twinkie Bird is amazing.
Yeah.
Michelle, they've casted some great things. Like I've been in front of them like once or twice. I'm sure they don't remember me. I'm looking everywhere for their email addresses. Can't find them. No phone numbers.
And what year is this?
Oh my gosh, 2010?
I think it's important to note, just because the internet was such a different world back then,
Yeah.
and finding people's information actually was much harder than it is now.
Yeah, I think it was 2011. I know they have Facebook. I'm just going to send them this message. And so I sent Twinkie Bird this Facebook message of like, hi, I'm a recent college grad from Spelman. I'd love to intern in your office. I have no experience, but I'm willing to work for free. Don't suggest anyone say that in 2021. But in 2011, I did say that. And she never got back to me. So I reached out to Michelle and I sent the same exact message. And Michelle, who is hilarious, was like, sure, call the office. And I'm like, cool. You're gonna give me the number? I don't know. She did not give me the number. So I finally just got the nerve to send her another message like, hey, so sorry. I couldn't find the number. Can you give me the number? And she's like, here, and just gave me the number. And so I called her, and again, it's just a matter of, like, my mom always says, you have a no before you ask. So just ask. I interned with them for about a year for free until they started paying me. I learned so much. Like, I was getting the sides and seeing the actors come in and out. And I realized that I wanted more than the sides. I was like, where's the script? Like, what else is happening with this character? Who's deciding what happens with this character?
It's a really eye-opening experience. I recommend anyone listening, regardless of what path you want to take, it's so important to sit in on casting sessions. Some people can walk in and just like something about them, they're just already the role, you know, there's just something about the way they walk, and maybe that's put on, or maybe that's just who they are, and you'll never know, right?
No.
That's the beauty of it. But I definitely had that experience because I did something similar where I would be a reader for casting directors because I was just like hungry for experience and knowledge. I didn't go to film school. I didn't go up the assistant route. I had very similar to you where it's like, I got to get this education somehow and no one's going to hand it to me. So I'm just going to go ask for it. Why not? Like you said, the least they can do is say no. But it just really opened my eyes. One, how much easier it is to be the audience than the actor, right? During the audition, you're like, this isn't so bad when you're sitting on the other side of the table.
Oh my gosh, like they missed that line. I could have got that.
Yeah. Or like, you know, you don't even notice it, but it just gives you that much more sympathy. At least for me, it did, about the actors that are, you know, putting all of themselves out there to come in, and whether it's like a Burger King commercial or it's the role of a lifetime.
Sorry if you hear a little bit of background noise. Again, we're from home, guys. I have my nieces here with me.
No worries. We keep it real on the show. You know, the show used to be called Life with Kaka. Now it's Angle on Producers, but we're still here to talk about the Kaka and the messy parts. And this is it.
The Kaka that was 2020, that is January 2021.
It is a Kaka, but there's so much to be grateful for. You mentioned earlier, you know, doctors, they save lives. And while we are definitely not curing cancer or saving lives, I think we're curing people's souls. You know, I think we're here to help people go through things in their lives, all kinds of things. And so filmmaking is the ultimate act of community service, because we see ourselves in these images. We find ourselves, we lose ourselves, sense of community. You know, we maybe don't see ourselves like growing up, and it's important to, so I think that, I think that getting to do this is not easy. It definitely comes with a lot of uncertainty and frustration. For me, for sure, the path has definitely been, the grind never ends. But ultimately, what keeps bringing me back to it is this reminder that if this impacts just one person and changes one person's perspective on anything, whether it's through an important documentary or a silly comedy, like, then that is worth doing. You know, that is worth leaving behind. And I feel very grateful, not to like sort of take it off course here, but that, you know, that I get to do this, that we get to do this. What a privilege that we get to have this time and space as women. Like there's never been a better time to be a woman. You know?
Like that's so true, is that like, it's definitely a privilege, and we do heal souls, and we are responsible for building culture, maintaining and pushing forward different images that, you know, they say life reflects art and art reflects life.
That's right.
And where we don't know where that starts and where that stops, but I think it's cyclical, and I think that they all influence each other. And I think it's really important to just take that responsibility so seriously.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest things that I try to do with our projects, is to know that I am privileged to tell certain stories, and how powerful that impact can be. And I mean, we saw that with like Coco and Black Panther, and how little kids are looking at these shows and these movies and like, wow, like, that's me. Like, I see me. And I remember for me growing up, I didn't see that at all. There were no times other than, you know, like Family Matters and Fresh Prince, but that I can be like, oh, like that's me.
Yeah.
Or I want to be that, or that's my mom.
And it's so interesting because like as children, you know, our imagination is that we sort of like transform ourselves into these characters. And so you do become these characters that you love, but you never really stop to think, because you're a kid, oh yeah, none of these people look like me. I love all these characters. I want to dress up like them for Halloween, but none of them actually look like me. And as someone who is like a white appearing Latina, you know, I definitely had the privilege of never having to be aware of that fact until I was much older. It's almost embarrassing, but it's like the movements that have been happening have really helped me as well, like reflect on what are the images that I'm putting out there? What are the stereotypes that I'm subconsciously perpetuating, that I want to use this power and this platform to change those things, you know? Micro steps, brick by brick, is how you build a bridge somewhere.
One thing that you mentioned is like the journey, and how you're never done, right? Like people are like, oh, so how does it feel that you're, and it's like, well, it's still work. Like I'm still working, and there's still so much to be done. Like I don't think we'll ever be done.
If you've done your work well, you pass the baton for someone else coming up behind you to continue the work and the legacy that is, like you said, like leaving behind stories that are going to impact change and be part of this conversation that is so much bigger than our lifetime. So all that to say that yes, for as insane as 2020 has been, I also think that it's given us massive blessings to really redefine ourselves as an industry, as individuals, as producers. Like, who are we going to be now?
The biggest lessons is like I mentioned, my nieces are here. I think that I learned that family is important to me.
I know. And isn't that crazy that you took a pandemic to be like, oh yeah.
I mean, I'm still a workaholic, and I still like love what I do, but it's important that we're in people's homes and you see these executives and actors and producers with their families and their dogs in the background and handling life. Because I think sometimes we disconnect people from their lives, and we're like, oh, so you're just a producer. You're just doing this one thing. And actually, like, you're a full human that has emotions.
I want to just get back to your journey a little bit. I want to know how Viola came into your life, because I find it fascinating that you got to have this really personal relationship with her, and it sounds like she became a mentor and a friend.
I came into Viola's life as her nanny. Humility and knowing that you want to learn is really important to me in my journey. And I think I was tutoring, so my mom told me I had to use my degree at all times. So I was tutoring people in math and biology and all kinds of other fun stuff. And the agency that was placing me with families, they gave me a call and were like, hey, we have this actress who just got this TV job. She's looking for somebody to kind of come in and help her with her daughter, but also who knows the industry, because she's looking to grow her company. She might be closing a deal soon with a studio. So somebody who's just willing to learn and grow. They're like, well, she's looking for somebody who is, young who is Black, preferably, or a woman of color. And, you know, being from LA, and knowing our world as like, nobody asked for that. So what is happening?
It's very specific. It was like destined for you.
I was like, who's pranking me? Honestly, like I thought it was a friend pranking me. Nobody asked for a Black woman to do anything. They were like, it's Viola Davis. And I was like, yes, please. Said like, what? I love her. I love her work. I like follow her speeches and she's amazing. Come to find out, full circle, I won't say the name of the agency, but I was the only Black person on their roster to send. Wow. So when you talk about destiny, I think it is twofold. Like I am blessed that I was that one person, but it sucks that there was only one. I never thought that like my journey would come to being a nanny for Viola, which is crazy because I had so much fun and I learned so much. I was able to, which is just great. I tell people this all the time, like learn in the background with low stakes, right? So I was able to give opinions that didn't really have any weight to them.
Or repercussions, right?
Or repercussions. Like, I was like, the script is a little, I don't know. And she's like, yeah, it's not good. I'm like, yeah, like we're on the same page.
Yeah, same wavelength.
Versus like now, like what we do has some consequences.
Right.
So I was able to help her and her really maintain her home life while also learning what the industry have different titles and try to juggle it as a woman in this industry and juggle as a woman of color. And so I was with her for 2 years. I would like try to put in my phone and be like,
record everything she says. Yeah. What's the biggest takeaway? Like if you could sum up the biggest lesson that you walked away with after those 2 years?
You know, it's so funny because I'm still learning from her today.
Yeah.
I think one thing is that Viola, she believed in herself. When there weren't people that looked like her doing what she wanted to do. And there were people saying, no, you can't do that. You can't, like, leading lady, the sexy leading lady. I don't know about that. And she really kept pushing. And I was like, I know that this is for me. I know that I'm like destined to do this. Viola has always been an artist who is respectful of the craft and respectful of others around her and of appreciating their being and knowing that like seeing her speak to the PAs in the same way that she would speak to the director is something that I continue to do and to make sure that like every set I'm on, that everyone feels valuable because they are. Like, look at those credits after every film and TV show, like it's not two people.
Yeah.
There's no way that it could be two people.
Yeah.
I'm still learning every time she speaks. I'm like, yes, that.
Yeah. She said something that I wrote down, strive for significance, not just for success. Yeah. I think is beautiful. You said in an article that she taught you that loving yourself unapologetically is the key to success and to happiness. Like no matter when experiences get you down, you have to trust that you're here for a reason. And so on that note, there's so many ups and downs in this business. And now you've been at it for a decade. It sounds like about a decade, right? So when you've had these ups and downs, like how do you get yourself out of the down and back to a place of a high to still continue?
I mean, I think that one thing is for certain is that I think that self-care should be at the forefront of everybody's mind, but is not. And I think it's really good to continue to talk about that. And I suck at it, so I'm just completely transparent. Rachel is always like, take a break, like put your computer away, don't answer your phone. And I'm like, no, but I'm gonna miss. And you're like, you're not gonna miss anything. You will be fine. I spend time with family. I think family really humbles me. I mean, they're like, oh, so
they are not impressed. Yeah.
No, not at all. I tried to win brownie points, like when Viola and Julius and Genesis came to like my birthday party, and they were just kind of like, cool, go away. We just want to hang out with Viola. And I was like, guys, I made this happen. They're like, yeah, bye. Like,
Bye. We don't care.
I love that. Like, I'm still like their little cousin. I'm still the niece. I'm still the girl that grew up in Altadena that had dreams and, you know, followed them and is still following them.
There is no one path, right? But when I started out, I didn't know that. And I felt like, oh, I missed out. I didn't go the assistant route. I don't know anyone.
Supposed to do the mailroom first. And
I didn't do the few things that I had learned were people's trajectory. I just felt like I was always behind. So I was like, all right, I got to work harder than everybody. Started to realize that my self-worth and my identity as a human was getting tied up in this idea of being this producer, of being this person who's working and the hustle and the grind, and you always got to be, you know, and it would lead to depression because when that went away, it's like, oh, no one's calling me for work. You know, I was in my 20s as well, so I was still growing up, but it took a long time and a lot of therapy and yoga and real self-care to kind of get on the other side of that. And I wouldn't say I'm like immune to it. I still very much feel that. All this to say that like navigating those challenges for you, like, is there a ritual that you have or a group of people that really have helped you stay the course? If you maybe you haven't like wanted to throw in the towel and say, fuck this, like maybe I'll go back to biology, or maybe I'll go do something completely different. I restarted once. Why not again? You know?
Yeah. Listen, I love that question because I think you're absolutely right. There's so many times where you're like, 30 years, like, I don't want to wait 30 years to make my dream project. Like, I mean, we're both very young, but it feels like 30 years feels like too long.
I would say so.
Absolutely not. They're like, why would anybody want to do that to themselves? So for my self-care, I have a really good group of friends. I have some that are in the industry, Jamila Hunter, Denise Davis, Corinne Williams. I have some that are outside of the industry that I relate to on different levels about different things. But all of those, mainly women, I have a few, you know, key guys that I talk to. Shout out to Justin Key and Daryl Blaylock.
A balanced cabinet, it sounds like.
Balance is key.
Yeah.
I'm able to talk to them. I'm able to be vulnerable. I can cry. I can ask for advice. But I think one thing that you mentioned is that we're gonna fail. It's inevitable. And sometimes you do things that you're not really proud of. You're like, that wasn't really me. Those core group of friends like Denise or Daryl who will pull me to the side and be like, hey, like, I don't know if you actually meant to do what you just did. And I'm like, what did I do? Like, sometimes you're just oblivious to those things, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that's important to have that key group that you trust, that you know love you, and they have the best in mind for you. And then on your side, you just have to be open and vulnerable to learning and growing and knowing that you're not going to always get it right.
Yeah. It's so interesting because it's like our industry is built in some way on facade. You know, there's the adage of like, you got to fake it till you make it. And that phrasing is a little misleading. I think it's like you have to trust that you know only so much and you have your instincts or your intuition that you're going to figure it out. But you also have to use that same instinct to know the things you don't know and that you're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I've learned that there are moments where that vulnerability with people who are not in your inner circle can really pay off, and moments where it backfires, you know. There's this idea that, especially as producers, as people in positions of power, that you have to know everything, you have to like have all the facts, you have to always project confidence, and sometimes you're not confident about a thing, and like learning how to navigate that is I think the ultimate challenge. And because if you lie, you're gonna get yourself into a room that you're not ready to be in, and you're gonna make a lot of people like who maybe helped you get in that room look really bad. So I don't think that's good advice, and I see it kind of permeated everywhere. So
I think you're right. People just kind of take it the wrong way. The fake it till you make it is exactly what you said. It's knowing what you don't know and then going out and finding it and figuring out a way to know that information. That's what I did with Viola. Like I started off as a nanny and then slowly started to gain more responsibility because I gained the trust and I gained the knowledge. And they saw that I was hungry and doing things outside of, like, when Genesis was at school, I'd be like, okay, do you have a script that I can read? I'd love to like come to set and just sit with you for a minute while she's doing something else.
Yeah.
Learning. And then you grow, and then they start giving you other responsibilities, and they get the ABC deal, and they're like, hey, can you, like, then they're asking you if you can read scripts and asking for your opinion on writers and projects. And then, then I went to Showtime and I started as an executive assistant. And again, where you feel like at times, like, I have a biology degree. Like, what do you mean you're gonna have to be another assistant? Or I'm like, you look at your paycheck and you're like, wait a second. But you have to start somewhere and learn. And I learned so much at Showtime that it's, to this day, invaluable relationships that I built as an executive assistant that I have to this day because of that desk.
One of the things that I've often wondered, especially someone who didn't come up the assistant route, I feel like a lot of the people, especially that I have on the show, when they talk about their cabinet, their sort of peers, the people that really are their main heart, their core group, it's people that came up with them, right? Kind of rose up side by side. But if you didn't get to have that dynamic with people coming up, how do you then build those relationships at this level,
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the authenticity is key. Knowing what you want out of that relationship is key going in. I think in our industry, you can feel when someone is not genuine, and that automatically pushes you away. You're like, oh, no, because there's so many people who are ingenuine in this industry that it doesn't make sense for you to add more to your circle. I remember reaching out to Denise, and I know what I wanted from her was, she was a young Black female producer who was running a young Black company and doing projects that I was really excited about.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know what her journey was. I didn't want anything else other than to just really hear her story. It is hard. I remember like going to Showtime, and like you said, everybody kind of knows each other from their previous job. And for me, it was just Viola. And everybody else was like, oh, I remember, like, they worked with so-and-so at, so-and-so agency for 2 years, and they like would send scripts, and there's like boards that I'm not on that they can like send an email and get like a quick glance at a writer's list that I'm not a part of. Or there's always this underbelly of our industry, right? Like, are you in the loop or are you not? And I hopefully one day that goes away.
Yeah.
I think for now, you're right. It is a matter of connections and networking, and being transparent has always worked for me, but also treating everybody with respect is really important. I think when I've seen people go in and not speak to our receptionist when I worked at Showtime, not say hi to the security, and just kind of be like, hey, I'm here to see like Gary Levine. And you're like, but do you know that like Gary walks in here every day and speaks to that receptionist? And she's worked here for 20 years. And so if she has a bad feeling about you, not to say she would tell him, but he might ask. And if he does ask, just again, being a human.
I've never understood this thing where the self is separate from your professional like pursuits in our industry. It's like, just be a good human, and then also be really good at the thing you're trying to do, or working on being really good at that thing you're trying to do. Like, that is the secret. That'll get you, and be relentless, right? And that'll get you so much further than most people. But you're right. Like, saying hello to any normal person, smiling at a receptionist, asking a security guard how their day is going, like, that's just life. Like, why would you not want to navigate your life that way, regardless of the outcome? In our industry, it's like, you never know who may be looking, who may be listening.
I was literally thinking the same thing. You never know who is in the room. And I have like a lesson in that that like really just kicked me in my butt.
Do you want to share that lesson without naming names?
Sure. I was asked to read a script at Showtime, and this was probably in my first month or two. So I was new to doing coverage, new to really having a voice on projects, and kind of was used to the, oh, it's good, oh, it's bad, really glossing over things. And so I was asked to read the script. I read it, and I thought it was horrible. There was nothing in that script that I felt like could be salvaged. I was like, this is one of the worst scripts I've ever read. I can't even believe somebody wrote this. This person is repped. What is happening?
Wow.
So in my little huddle of like with all the executive assistants, we're all talking about the script, and like people are getting very thoughtful, very thoughtful feedback. My feedback was exactly what I just said. Like, this is trash. And just so happened that one of the executives was like walking down the hall and like listening. But of course, me being in our little executive bubble, like executive assistant bubble, I saw them and was like, okay, they're probably not really listening to what we're saying though. Cause like we're executive assistants. Nobody cares what we think. I was just like reaming this script. I thought nothing of it. Later that day, I was in the break room and the executive came in and I was like, hi, like, how's your day going? Great, how are you? I'm like, it was good. It's like, so I heard you like hated that script. And I'm like, oh yeah, like, wasn't good. Like, oh, like, my brother wrote that.
Oh, shit. What did you say?
I was like, oh, well, I mean, it could have been, yeah, there was,
just backpedaling. Oh.
Your blood brother, or like, you know, how like we do in our community, like the brother.
Oh, man.
But again, just being thoughtful and never knowing who's around. But that wasn't, I mean, I was 2 months in, I was great. I definitely don't do that. Anybody's mistake.
I once had a meeting in Beverly Hills and I was early. I forget what it was, but I went to have lunch and two assistants sit down next to me and they start having a conversation between them, just talking a bunch of shit about a bunch of people. And it just so happened that the one assistant happened to be my agent's assistant who I never met, but I knew her name and I heard keywords and I heard the guy like say her name. And then I heard like say certain names that I was like, I think they're talking about my agency. Wait. And they were none the wiser. And I sent an email to my agent and I was like, hey, you should just know that your assistant was talking a bunch of shit. And I know it's lunch work and you're decompressing. I get it. But time and place, like our tables were sat very close to each other. This was pre-pandemic. And I was like, it could have been someone else listening and it could have been really detrimental. And it was embarrassing. The agent was like, oh my God. Because it was not a pleasant conversation to eavesdrop on. And it also, as a client, I was like, like these are the kind of assistants, like who are these people really then, right? And she could have been the sweetest girl having a bad day, but in those 30 minutes, I got a really bad impression of her that misrepresents my agency, and that's not cool.
Not at all.
But I want to get to Scrap Paper Pictures, and I feel like it seems like this was a big pivot for you, a big opportunity to step into this new company that Rachel Brosnahan has with a first look deal with Amazon, where you're head of development and production. From everything in your path has sort of led you to this moment, it seems like. And it's such a big opportunity. So I'm curious, it's been about 6 months now that you've been there, right? Since
it's been a year.
Oh, a year. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, they announced.
Oh, really. I see. Yeah. When I found you, it had been like 6 months into it. But so, okay, a year in, like, how did this opportunity come about? How is it going?
I reached out to CAA and let them know that I was looking for my next job after I was at Will Packer as a manager of scripted TV and really wanted to expand. And Brett Longcar, Shauna Perlman, Angela Dallas, thank you so much. Shout out to CAA, Joe Cohen. I was like, hey, if you guys hear of anything, let me know. Like, no, I'm looking. I'm happy where I am, but I'm looking. I have a relationship with Shauna because I worked with her brother Jake at Showtime. So not only does Shauna know like my professional life, she knows who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And that was really important for me for my next step, is that I worked with somebody who I loved. I think that we as producers get on projects that we're passionate about, but also we need to work with people that we respect and love and admire. Because like Queen's Gambit example, you could be working with somebody for a very long time. Yeah. And Shauna said, hey, Rachel, like she's had this pod for a while, but hasn't been able to hire an executive. This is, as soon as she signed the deal, she kind of had to go right back to Maisel, and has been really under Maisel land. And so she's looking to hire someone. I think you guys, like personality wise, but also like professionally, would vibe. I was like, okay, like I love Maisel. I loved her in House of Cards, and I did, you know, the due diligence and the research on her, and she seemed on the right side of change, which I think was important for me then as well. And I met with Rachel and her manager, Kinley. We shut down the coffee shop. We were like talking kind of like what we're doing now. I think when you vibe with someone, you don't even realize the time, right? You're just talking. The guy at the coffee shop was like, hey, I'm gonna like start cleaning up and closing, but like feel free to stay and talk. And we were just like, oh, we didn't even realize, like, we're so sorry. She had sent me a few projects that were in early stages of development that she wanted to pursue and wanted to get my feedback. And so like the OCD person I am, I had like written notes. I also had my laptop. I was ready to like deliver all kinds of feedback. And her and I spoke on FaceTime a few times just to kind of get to know each other, which to this day, I think her and I will agree that that is what solidified our partnership.
Yeah.
We talked about our dogs. We talked about our families, things that are important to us outside of the work. And the last call, she was like, hey, I kind of like this. Like, you want to make this a thing? And I was like, nice. Are you guys taking me out on a date? Like, yes, I want to make this a thing. I said yes to the dress.
Oh my God, yes. So now it's been a year of bliss. Yes.
It's been a year of bliss. She is I call her my PIP, so my partner in producing, PIP. And her husband and I are like, we share her. It's great. He's like, you guys have to FaceTime all the time. Can you just, we're like, yes, we just love each other.
That's awesome.
It's been a good first year. We had a lot of things on our slate. We're working with a lot of partners. We love to partner, and we love working with other creatives. We just did Yearly Departed.
Yes.
Which we're
awesome.
So excited about.
Well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, being very intentional with that, and making sure we wanted women to have the last word. We wanted women of color to be in the forefront and behind the camera. And shout out to Ava DuVernay, who's going to be releasing a database soon, because it was really difficult to find women of color for a lot of the roles behind the camera. You know, Rips. We did what we could. But it's been fun. And like you mentioned, our first look at Amazon, and our team there is amazing and so supportive. And our TV projects, Rachel's not starring in. And so it's been really fun for us both to dive in just creatively and not have to worry about how like she's going to find time to act and produce in that. Now, our feature stuff is she's going to be acting and producing, and there's some other projects on the feature side that she's not, but there are a few that she has to juggle both hats, and I know that stresses her out. But
sure, it's a lot of responsibility. What is it about the marriage of you both that you think makes a great partnership, aside from this friendship clearly that you have and this affinity and respect for each other? But what would you say is that thing?
We're aligned on all of the important things, but then we also challenge each other. We also don't we will disagree and still be able to maintain the relationship that we have. And the respect that we have for each other, and we'll come to some middle ground. Like, hey, and it's usually really small.
I think that's wonderful. Like, it really breeds that trust, right? That like you may disagree, but it's never just in spite of something. There's always a real reason that sometimes, like you said, may not even be, it may be a moot point, but that you can have that conversation. That's the real key.
You're absolutely right. And again, it's knowing that we both want the bigger vision. Right?
Yeah.
The end goal is we want the same thing. And nobody wants to feel like they sacrificed anything or themselves or their moral compass. And we never do that. So like you mentioned about the caca of this year, the great thing is that we were able to have conversations that maybe we wouldn't have had if the things that were happening in our world last year in January of this year, if they didn't take place.
Yeah, absolutely.
For Yearly Departed, we want to have women. We want to center women. We want to center women of color. We want to center Black women. Like all of those layers come with like conversations. Again, it's just a testament to her knowing what privilege is and knowing how to open that door in that conversation. Because as women of color, that's usually not the role that we take on of like, let me talk about this, because we don't want to be the only. And I think to Rachel's testament, again, why it works so well for me personally is that I never feel like I'm alone in a room. I never feel like I have to take a stand and be the only person to take the stand. I never feel like I'm the only person who has to answer a question that may be surrounding an issue of color or issue of race. I am, for Yearly Departed, for example, our writer's room was diverse, and there was a active conversation of making sure that there wasn't just one woman of color in the room. And that did not start from me. That started from Bess Cal and Rachel. And I was sitting like back in the Zoom, like, yeah.
Yeah, the fact that this has to be a conversation.
Waiting for my time to like speak and to say like, hey guys, by the way, let's just make sure that we don't. And they had already said it. And that to me means we're doing it right.
Yeah, it's nice to know that it's not a facade. You know what I mean? That it's like, this is real. There are people with integrity who are on the inside doing good things, creating good work. Yeah, and continuing to be that model of integrity and of the thing I preach so much on the podcast of just be an honest, good person. Like, it's so important. We need that more than ever. And so
and being vulnerable to knowing the things you don't know. I think we're learning that too, right? With when you talk about privilege and you talk about the learning curve that we've experienced because we live it, and that certain people now are just now starting their journey on, and because we're like, hey, we've already seen this. Like they're like, this isn't America. We're like, what America have you been living?
No, this is America, and we need to like rewrite the narrative is the thing. Or first we need to make peace with the narrative and rewrite it. Yep.
Exactly. And luckily I have a partner who sees all of it and has seen it from before.
It's honestly amazing. I think you're amazing. I'm obsessed with Rachel and everything you guys are up to. I'm so excited to see what's on the horizon and to cheer you guys on from the sidelines and watch all the things.
I mean, I thank you for having, doing this platform and having multiple people on here who tell their journeys and their experiences. And that's how I learned. I mean, from someone who didn't go to school for it, I watched a lot of interviews. I read every book out there, even the ones that people were like, that book doesn't tell what really happens in the industry.
Yes.
I read like interviews. So this is like, these are crash courses for those who have not taken the stereotypical path. All of these conversations are, you take little bits of everything and kind of make your own puzzle, which is what a producer does anyway, right?
Exactly.